Okay, we're going to do another reaction video. So this is going to be for Dragon Age Inquisition from E3 of 2014. BioWare actually has a pretty clean video that was actually made after the fact, so I don't think it's exactly the same. I actually haven't watched it, so this one's going to really be a reaction video. But before we get started on watching the video, I think we need to set the stage for E3. So if you haven't been to E3, well, first of all, it's hot and it's smoky because there is a lot of stage smoke used by various booths, and that just sort of collects in the air and combines with various sweat. So by the end of the day, there are basically storm clouds forming at the top of the convention center from thousands upon thousands of unwashed bodies milling about. And it's incredibly noisy. You have the crowd, you have random deep bass music coming from some other booth nearby. And for Dragon Age Inquisition in 2014, you have this trailer for Madden playing through the walls.
Let me tell you a story about the other side of the ball. Since the beginning...
Now, of course, it's not playing quite that way. It's distorted by the walls in the way. So more like that. Now, I'm not going to force you to listen to all of this throughout the reaction video, but I think it's worth setting the stage that things are very distracting and noisy and uncomfortable while you are presenting at something like E3. Unlike PAX, where it's one and done, 3,000 people all at once, with E3, you're doing these presentations back to back for 3 or 4 days. Myself and Mike Laidlaw would trade off doing these presentations, and then while you weren't doing that, you might be doing a press interview or be on camera for somebody else, or maybe you try to shove some food in your mouth so you don't die. But with that, and without too much extra thinking about it, let's get started and see if I have a traumatic reaction to this.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out our post E3 video. My name is Mike Laidlaw, I'm the creative director for Dragon Age Inquisition. And today, we're going to show you how our mix of exploration, real-time and tactical combat, and BioWare's award-winning storytelling are going to come together into one unforgettable experience. While we showcased any number of combinations at E3, for this demo, we want to go with the fan favorite and play the female Qunari mage.
Okay, so yeah, big opening comment here. I forgot this. We actually, at E3, played different player characters with different races and different classes so that we could show off lots of different things. It's a bit of a weird choice, actually, in retrospect, because you're showing to so many different people. People weren't seeing that variety, but like at PAX, we were hoping that this would disseminate out into the wider audience over time.
The Shams won't lift a finger to save us.
Inquisition is the biggest Dragon Age game. In fact, this area that you'll see here, and you can go virtually anywhere that you can see in the landscape, is larger than the entire playspace of Dragon Age Origins. And it's not the only one. Inquisition is built of a series of multiple regions, allowing you to travel from blistering deserts to demon-infested swamps over the course of your adventures.
Templar bastards killed my husband and stole the ring from his finger. They deserve to die.
You're saying the Templars attacked your husband?
Aye. He was digging out a stump. The fools couldn't tell a shovel from a mage's staff. Had to be safe, they said. Rebels everywhere attacking by surprise, sick bastards.
Really, we're a little bit too proud of the simple conversation system in Dragon Age Inquisition, showing it off in the first minute and a half of our E3 demo. So this is, I guess, based upon that quest, It must be the Hinterlands. Oh yeah, it says the Hinterlands up at the top. Okay.
They took the ring I gave him on our wedding day in case it was magic.
Farewell.
This location, as you've just heard, is struggling as the mages and Templars are vying for control. And every location you visit is part of the larger story and is a space you can impact with your actions. Rather than just tell you that the Mage and Templar conflict is a threat, we wanted to make sure that you were a part of it.
I think it's funny that bears have become almost a meme in fantasy RPGs for being some of the toughest fights that you can have, and that's certainly true of Dragon Age Inquisition. Obviously, we are balanced to make combat possible and quick for the purposes of the demo, but yes, bears in the Hinterlands and elsewhere in Dragon Age Inquisition are super duper tough fights. Yeah, as we're going, I am starting to remember this demo more and more.
With Inquisition, we wanted to go beyond random encounters, and instead, we built the World Master System, one that ensures that Nerea's population is directly influenced by you and how you choose to play. Hunt all the...
That's just an effort to brand some of our features. I think it is an excellent thing to do if you can. Give your features names that people can remember. I don't know that BioWare has done a particularly successful job of that, but it was an effort.
The bears in a region for their hide, perhaps for a new suit of armor, and their numbers will dwindle. Similarly, spread your Inquisition to a region, and you will see your troops patrolling the roads and signs of their presence. Inquisition is one of the most dynamic RPGs you will ever play.
So now you can start to see how we have evolved from what we were talking about in PAX. This is more about reflecting the things that you're doing as opposed to this big military strategy game that was being implied with the PAX demo. This, obviously, since we were a lot closer to a release, is a much more accurate representation of the game as it ended up being.
Good view of the King's Road from up here.
Our goal today is to bring the war between the mages and the Templars to an end, and our first step on that journey is to reach the village of Redcliffe. As you saw from the encounters happening below, where mages...
I actually really like the skull, what do you call them, oculons from Dragon Age Inquisition. It's just a neat little bit of gameplay. It's kind of like the telescopes that you put a quarter into at a national park. It's nice to have little bits of content like that add a little bit of variety to your gameplay.
And Templars are actively fighting. In order to reach that location, we're going to have to get our hands dirty. Now, Dragon Age always puts you in the role of a leader, and at all times, you're in a command of a team that you've assembled and outfitted yourself. The enemies you encounter in the world are also working as a team, using their abilities and environment in intelligent ways to pose challenges. Up here, you'll see a simple example as the mages throw down glyphs to deny us areas, forcing us to attack from different directions.
Looks like the mages are enjoying themselves. Down here!
The warrior!
Come on, we're not gonna solve this by sticking around here.
Combat in Inquisition pits your abilities against your foes, and so we can take a closer look at what's happening here using our tactical view. The Templar Defender has a massive tower shield, preventing us from attacking the front. And you'll notice that our characters respond to how the battle is playing out. Our ranged characters staying at the back, and at any time, we can switch to any member of our party to take direct control.
Kill that warrior! Here we go! Die!
Here you can see why we want to bring this conflict to an end. The battles between the groups are tearing this area apart. In Inquisition, you must be the leader of leaders. Iron Bull, who we see in our party, is a commander of his own mercenary company. Vivienne was the first enchanter of the Circle of Magi. And every member of your party shares this kind of influence and expertise. Inquisition also includes our...
So still a little bit of hints of the larger organizational stuff, which did remain in the game at this point.
The largest cast of characters to date, including returning favorites from previous Dragon Age titles. All of them have come together to join our cause, the Inquisition.
So that's actually an example of something that we ended up on Dragon Age Inquisition calling a designer hug. Basically, what we found in the development of Dragon Age Inquisition, in the making of an open world game, was that if you went more than about 45 seconds without something, then the level started to feel really empty. And that 45 seconds is very highly dependent on expectations on the level. I've talked about that a little bit before. An area like the Hinterlands, which is highly populated, that expectation is very high. Something like the Hissing Wastes, you're expecting a lot less content. You can go a lot longer. But a designer hug is basically just seeing something that looks like it was placed there by a person. So a chest, or even just a dead body with nothing on it at all, not even a note, or a sign, or an urn, something that shows some attention being paid to the space, a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of purpose. Not entirely sure why that edit was there.
Throughout the game, you'll be spreading your influence across the world, setting up new camps, deploying troops, and fortifying strongholds. And as we make our way onto one now, you'll see that to travel these massive spaces, Inquisition has introduced mounts for the first time in the Dragon Age game.
Okay, so mounts. Mounts were intentionally a C feature for Dragon Age Inquisition. What do I mean by a C feature? I mean they were designed to exist. They weren't even designed to meet player expectation. That would be a B. They were designed to be not distracting from the game. At the time, it seemed like, and I think it was, necessary for fantasy RPGs to have mounts in them because they were just table stakes for the game. But we had to make a lot of compromises to make it work because of your party. So your party disappears and you ride your mount without the party around. We had some early prototypes for better mounts, a full party on mount, mounted combat, things like that. They didn't really work with the lower Gen 3 specs, and also it was starting to distract from the rest of the game. So they were, and I think correctly for Dragon Age Inquisition, pushed to the background. I think if you want to have mounts, works better if you have just a single person in your party, like Witcher, or if you are building the game around it, like Mount and Blade.
In addition to the Ferelden Bay we have here, there are numerous exotic mounts also available for you to acquire, collect, and ride across the land.
Which I do think are kind of cool, especially the Bog Unicorn.
Inquisitor, we're honored.
I heard rumors that there are apostates outside the city fighting the Templars.
I wouldn't pay those rumors any more.
Grandmother, I think we should go.
Go? In the middle of the war?
So Redcliffe, when I was still at BioWare, had a deck explaining the challenges of towns and cities. I think I'll try to build something in a video at a later date talking about cities. I think Redcliffe does an okay job of Village. Village is about as big as you can go with just a one-to-one representation of what's going on.
Mother, I had a dream again last night.
No, there'll be no more.
And when I woke up, the ship was...
In Inquisition, your party members have their own goals, aspirations, and they will often pause while exploring to share them with you or with each other.
Sarah, I had a thought. The next time we run into a line of enemies, I'll pick you up and throw you.
Get off.
No, this could work. I loft you over the front ranks. You land behind them to flank. Mayhem ensues.
Possibly one of the biggest memes coming out of Dragon Age Inquisition is the Iron Bull suggesting the fastball special to Sarah.
Fly, you daft tit.
Think of the mayhem, Sarah. Mayhem.
I'd get a wedge up something fierce.
Look, you and Varric are the only ones small enough, and he's pretty dense.
We'll do some bloody presses.
Redcliffe is serving as a staging ground for my forces. With the Mage and Templar War spiraling out of control, we've realized that to bring it to an end, we need to infiltrate here, Redcliffe Castle, a mage stronghold. Exploration zones such as this one are filled with opportunities to grow the influence and power of the Inquisition. We'll travel to a previously explored camp to pursue one of those now. Of course, we know there's a sincere threat ahead, so it's a chance for us to nerd out a bit as we dig into the inventory and look at the weapons.
So I really like the camp system from Dragon Age Inquisition. You see some similar things from most open world games where you can only quick travel to some place that you've been, but because they were camps, that in Dragon Age Inquisition we could establish the Inquisition's presence, and it gave us a place to anchor your organization in the world.
And armor of our party. Here we'll switch down with the Iron Bull and grab that Battlemaster mail we looted earlier while we were exploring. This changes his appearance, and of course, if you don't want to use just looted armor, you do have extensive crafting materials to choose from. In Inquisition, every character fulfills a unique role. As you build your unique strategy, you'll have over 200 abilities, spells, and upgrades to choose from in order to give every character in your party their own unique role and style of fighting.
Dragon. Let's be sure she leaves us in one piece.
Like I've said before, I do think that Dragon Age Inquisition's dragon fights remain the best dragons in video games, and they are certainly the best monster battles within Dragon Age Inquisition itself.
While the little ones go down easily enough, the High Dragon is the apex predator of the Dragon Age world. In Inquisition, dragons are so large that we've changed the way you target them, individually attacking their limbs and their tails in order to bring them down. If you can inflict enough damage, you'll be able to change the flow of the fight.
One thing that's actually come up with dragons in Dragon Age Inquisition is because of their soundscape as well as their animation, they're selling their empathy. They're inducing empathy, let's say, a little bit too strongly. So sometimes they do a fairly good job of making you feel bad, as if you are slaughtering some animal that's just trying to defend itself, which isn't the best. You don't want to feel bad defeating the creature that is the pinnacle of Dragon Age Inquisition combat.
Rather than mana or stamina, a spell like Haste uses Focus, a resource built up only through teamwork. Focus abilities are incredibly powerful, allowing us to wound this dragon's leg and bring it down. But in order to use them, you have to build them up over time, making them very strategic in how you deploy them into each fight. So interestingly here, we've actually come out of combat mode because the dragons
flown up onto that cliffside to sort of pose. The combat was running through the real combat logic, so as a result, we didn't have full control over what actually happened in this combat during the E3 demo. Now, we've spec'd people so that they're unlikely to die, and they made things so they're very controllable, but you can always get caught by surprise.
Inquisition is the biggest Dragon Age game.
So I think we really wanted a lot more of this sort of class-specific interaction with the world than we actually ended up having. We had Energize, we had some smashing and lockpicking, but it just wasn't really used to quite the same degree as I think we were hoping for.
Game we've created, and it represents the next generation of BioWare RPGs, with a massive world, dynamically and reactively populated based on your decisions, a massive cast of legends and an Inquisition for you to lead, and a variety of tools with which to destroy your foes, including tactical and real-time combat. This is the Dragon Age game we've always wanted to make. Thank you so much for checking it out.
Okay, so we're halfway through. I'm going to load the other video now. If you've stuck with me this long, please consider giving this video a like, because that's going to help it spread more widely and let more people see it. If you are enjoying it, maybe think about sharing it with somebody else. So during the last demonstration, or the last demo at E3, I was the one demoing. I basically, my brain shut off halfway through the demo. I actually think it was at this point when we were transitioning from the Hinterlands into Redcliffe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. And one of the IT people at the back of the room had to literally reboot me. So always have IT people along, because they'll fix your computers, but they'll fix your demo or two if they need it. Hey, it's me from the future. As I was editing this, I realized that I kind of shut down my commentary about halfway through as we transitioned into Redcliffe, which is exactly where my brain shut down when I did this at E3 the last time. So I'm coming back in now during the edit, and I'm going to add a little bit more commentary as we go. So if you see me in the shirt with the B on it, that's the new commentary. The shirt from Dragon Age Inquisition, that's the original React video. There won't be too much for me here, but there'll be a little bit. As we get started, I think it's probably worth maybe actually giving a bit more context of exactly what was going on from a physical perspective at E3. So I couldn't find a good video of this, but the EA booth at E3 used to be right front and center, right in front of the doors, as you walked into the main part of E3. And then we were just, as you were walking in, we were just off to the right. Now, originally, we were supposed to have some additional stuff in front of the door to the Inquisition booth, but some executive decided at the last second that it was much more important to put some sort of militarized police vehicle from Battlefield Hardline there, and they sort of squeezed into our space, which I was not a big fan of. So we had essentially a building within a building for our demoing. There was the main booth where we were demoing, which had a set of risers built out of plywood, and then there's a podium at the front and a big screen, and people would file into that as we gave the demos. I think we sat about 35 or 40 people, something around that. We also actually had air conditioning built into our space, which was just dumping hot air into the overall E3 space. So again, a building within a building, but not the most green of options to cool an interior space into another interior space that's already massively overheated. Myself and Mike Laidlaw were the people who were demoing, and then we had Bruce and Blair again on the sticks, actually running the demo, driving the demo as we were doing it. Devin and Patrick were the people who were making sure that everything kept running all the IT, and it was Patrick who actually was the person who had to reboot me on the last demo of E3. Additionally to the main demo room, we had another room which we used to actually have playable code available. One of the requirements for winning Game of Show or any of the awards at E3 is that you actually have playable code. So we had a different section. I think it was the Western Approach again, but I can't actually remember. Behind closed doors, we had 3 people there that would drive those demos. I'm just going to stop a second and see if I can find out who they were. Yeah, that seems right. It was actually Liz, Chris, and Cameron. I think those were the people that were running the demo behind closed doors. That room was also where we kept a lot of water bottles, and I also had Jessica find me unsweetened iced tea, which at the time was really hard to find in Canada, but not as hard to find in the United States. So I was running on probably an unhealthy amount of caffeine throughout this, because I was hydrating pretty much entirely with full-on unsweetened iced tea. At least I didn't consume an immense amount of calories.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for checking out our post-E3 video. My name is Mike Laidlaw. I'm the creative director for Dragon Age Inquisition. And today, we're going to show you how our mix of exploration, real-time and tactical combat, and BioWare's award-winning storytelling are going to come together into one unforgettable experience. For this section, we brought along a new party member, someone directly invested in our success. Dorian is a mage from the nation of Tevinter, a place not well loved in the south, and Dorian has joined the Inquisition with the direct hopes of restoring the honor of his homeland.
There's no use to this defiance, little bird. There's no one left for you to protect.
You're wasting your breath.
Talk!
So if you are familiar with Dragon Age Inquisition and you've played the Redcliffe section, you'll notice that Liliana doesn't look like she looked in the game itself. And that's actually intentional for 2 reasons. One, because, again, we're sort of misdirecting what's going on with the story, so we didn't want the corrupted Liliana here. But also, we wanted to make sure that Liliana was identifiable for people who were watching the demo. We wanted to make sure they knew who this was, if they were capable of knowing that.
I will die first. Or you will. You're alive.
I've talked about misdirection before in storytelling and demos, and that's exactly what's going on here. We're actually showing the future setting of the Redcliffe Castle section of Dragon Age Inquisition as if it's just as part of the main story, throwing a little bit of misdirection into the storytelling. I do think that when you're showing story for an RPG, you have to be careful about how much you reveal, how much you misdirect, because people want to be surprised, and you have to be aware of that in terms of what you reveal.
Well, that was impressive. Anger is stronger than any pain. Do you have weapons? Good. The Magister's probably in his chambers.
You aren't curious how we got here?
No. And mages always wonder why people fear them. No one should have this power.
What happened while we were away?
Stop talking.
I'm just asking for information.
No, you're talking to fill silence. Nothing happened that you want to hear.
Inquisition's focus on leadership means that we needed characters that were sophisticated and believable. Ones that react not only to what you say, but to the actions that you take. We're the ones who sent Leliana in here, she was tortured, and of course that will have a damaging impact on our relationship.
That line that Mike says there is almost exactly the same line as I used for Varric at PAX.
Every major character that joins you in Inquisition has their own story waiting to be told, explored, and influenced by your actions.
The breach! It's...
Everywhere.
Don't look up. Don't look up. Don't look. Shit. I looked.
Fade Rifts are an interesting piece of gameplay in Dragon Age Inquisition. At the end of the day, they're kind of just an aid to interact kind of interaction, but we give them a lot of weight with the hold and the animation to really try to sell them. And I think it can be useful to have that kind of base level interaction that has a lot of weight and presence and physicality to give you a little variety in your gameplay. The first game I really saw that did this in an excellent way was the first God of War, where they had really physical chest openings, where you push the button and you had to lift it up, and it really felt real. At the end of the day, Fade Rifts are effectively just procedurally generated combat encounters, but you kind of want that to exist for your open world game. So if you can find a way to make them make sense from a story perspective and give them a little bit of extra oomph, that's worth doing. I feel like we're doing a bit of crossfading. Was that in the original? I'm not sure.
What happened here?
Somebody had very questionable taste.
Thus far, we focus mostly on the real-time elements of Dragon Age Inquisition combat, but another way to use your team effectively is to use the tactical view to order your followers into specific locations, assign them targets, and exploit enemy weaknesses with your abilities.
Like I mentioned in the PAX React, the tactical camera in Dragon Age Inquisition didn't end up being a particularly widely used feature, in part because of where the combat balance was. It was often used mainly to survey the battlefield. A lot less was used in terms of that direct tactical control. Because the combat was designed to be able to be played real time, that meant that abilities couldn't really take full advantage of a tactical overview of the level, because it would render certain abilities basically completely useless outside of tactical camera. So whereas if you look at something like Dragon Age Origins, there's a lot more careful positioning required in order to take full advantage of the abilities.
The Venatory Spellbinder has a weakness to cold, making him a perfect target for one of our ice spells. And as we move our camera, we can sweep around the battlefield, identifying targets, opportunities, and avenues of approach. Seeing a natural choke point here, we can send Iron Bull to hold that position with his life, hopefully creating a cluster of foes as we send our ranged characters over to these positions in order to hold them and rain death down on our enemies. At any point, you can choose to re-engage time, begin the process of fighting, and then alter your orders, adapting to the changing tactical situation in front of you.
One thing we've never done a really super great job at is have the ability for characters to actually block positions. Both because they have a tendency to move out of those positions, but also because the pathfinding often finds ways around them.
What in Andraste's name is that? Hold on to it. I want to look at it later.
Who's present in your party affects the story, just as much as it affects combat. Dorian trained under Alexius, the leader of the mages we're trying to stop. And having Dorian in our party and present for this encounter gives us options that we otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, I really like this part of Dragon Age Inquisition where banter is very based upon who's in your party, which of course it is, but it's very applicable and giving you information, giving you a reason to think about who you bring with you in a party beyond simply who you like to have in combat.
In addition to team-based tactical combat, huge dragon encounters, and the massive open world to explore, story remains critical to the Dragon Age series of games, and here you'll get some sense of the events that are driving this story forward.
Alexius, it's time to answer for your crimes.
And here you are, finally. I knew you would appear again. Not that it would be now, but I knew I hadn't destroyed you. My final failure.
Was it worth it? Everything you did to the world, to yourself.
It doesn't matter now. All we can do is wait for the end.
It does matter. I will undo this.
How many times have I tried? The past cannot be undone. All that I fought for, all that I betrayed, what have I wrought? Ruin and death, that is nothing else. The Elder One comes for me, for you, for us all. Felix.
That's Felix. Maker's breath, Alexius, what have you done?
He would have died, Dorian. I saved him. Please, don't hurt my son. I'll do anything you ask.
Hand over the amulet and we let him go.
Let him go and I swear you get what you want.
I won the world back.
No! No! Victory is impossible! The Elder One will destroy us both!
I don't know if you heard that. Alexis is repeating himself. It's always something to be careful with when you have combat barks, is that if you have things that are too specific, you're going to hear them quite a bit. Any bark this is true of. I would have been an adventurer until I took an arrow to the knee, the classic example from Skyrim. So unless you're going for memes, be careful about how specific your combat audio ends up being.
So much for the mighty Inquisition! Where are your assassins this time? The Elder One will destroy us both! It's a futile! This world's already lost! The Elder One will destroy us both! Your death will be my apology!
He wanted to die, didn't he? All those lies he told himself, the justifications. He lost Felix long ago. Didn't even notice. Oh, Alexius.
I know you cared for him.
Once he was a man to whom I compared all others. Sad, isn't it? This is the same amulet he used before. I think it's the same one we made in Minrathous. That's a relief. Give me an hour to work out the spell he used, and I should be able to reopen the rift.
Now, I'm pretty sure we actually chose Redcliffe for the second half of the E3 demo, specifically for the sequence that's about to happen. And we wanted that sequence specifically to show choice and consequence, which I've talked about before. Choice and consequence can be immensely difficult to show in a demo. And ironically, this sequence that comes up isn't actually showing choice and consequence at all, but it feels like it is. So often when you are making an RPG or a story-based game and you want to show the impact of choice, you might actually have to come up with an artificial toy example for your demo to make sure that it actually comes across. Because sometimes your consequence is too subtle or requires too much context to truly show off in a demo setting. Though it's worth keeping in mind that if it's too subtle for a demo setting, maybe it's too subtle for your game itself. At the end of the day, for Dragon Age Inquisition, the Redcliffe versus Seeker Fortress choice is actually too subtle. Most people didn't actually even notice that the consequence was there in the fall of Haven.
An hour? That's impossible. You must go now.
That's how they won. How it won.
We'll head out front. Keep them off your tail.
Cast your spell. You have as much time as I have arrows. Though darkness closes, I am shielded by flame. Andraste, guide me. Maker, take me to the side.
You move, and we all die!
This is the Dragon Age game we've always wanted to make. Thank you so much for checking it out.
One thing I just realized is this is actually from before we moved the date for the last time, because we actually came out in November, not in October. So I guess we had dated, and then we actually moved the date after that fact. So unlike the PAX demo, I don't have a lot to say in terms of accuracy, because this was very accurate to the way the game played in its final state. I talked a little bit about the misdirection on the story there, but otherwise it's pretty accurate. Sort of pick the scab off of this experience. The experience of demoing at a conference can be pretty awful, because you're just doing the same demo over and over and over again until eventually one of the IT people has to reboot you in front of 30 people because your brain shuts down on the last day. But hopefully you found this interesting to revisit this. I found it, I guess, interesting. Not as traumatic as I was worried about, but certainly wasn't a comfortable thing to watch. If you enjoyed this, then give this video a thumbs up. Special thanks to my members. They provide the resources this channel needs to keep running. If you would like to become a member, there is a link down in the description. That would be very helpful. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. As I said, share it with someone else. Let me know other things that you might like to see me react to. Things that are very close to the release of a game. I suspect I will have a lot less to say, like I did with this one compared to the PAX React. But I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you again soon. Thank you.